It's something that I personally, and of course politically, and as a member of Sinn Féin, I'm very, very concerned about. And I'm concerned about it for a lot of reasons. I'm concerned about the lack of community consent over the years and the way that the local community have been treated. I think it's the first time in this country that we've ever used a compulsory purchase order, for example, that the state have used a compulsory purchase order in the interest of multinational. So, there's lots of questions to be asked about the whole process. Now here today, I think, Steve, I'm not going to go into all that process, but it's more about what I was asked to just say is about the economic implications and lack of economic, I suppose, for Ireland, benefits for Ireland. When the gas and oil was discovered, we had a Labour, and I see Ray Burke here, councillor, he's a Labour councillor here in the town. When it was discovered, there were good terms and conditions were put in place by Minister Justin Keating, who was a Labour minister at the time. Now, the real concern is then, in 1987, when Ray Burke came along and changed those terms and conditions. And what he actually did was, as we all know, Ray Burke was later jailed for corruption. He changed the law in 1987, and he reduced the state's share in our offshore oil and gas from 50%, so we had a 50% stake, now to a 0%, and he abolished royalties as well. So that was the first step. The second thing that happened was in 1992, when a former Taoiseach, Bertie Ahern, he was Minister for Finance at the time, and he reduced the tax from 50% to 25%. So what we had pre-Fianna Fáil's interference in it, what we had 50% stake, and we had royalties, and we also had a tax, the gas was going to be taxed at 50%. So with the stroke, I suppose, of ministers' pens, what happened was that we had 0% stake in it, no royalties, and tax at 25%. The other thing that's often misrepresented about this is that the tax can be written off, all profits can be written off by the multinational, there's a number of multinationals, as all costs can be written off against that tax. And their costs incurred within Ireland and outside Ireland relating to the project. So I believe that it'll be a long time, if ever, that we, the Irish people, will see any financial benefit from the oil and gas. Now, I know this isn't, what we, in Sinn Féin, for example, what we're proposing is, and we launched this document 2 weeks ago, in relation to natural resources, relation to our natural resources, that we have a 51% stake in all our natural resources, and that we're proposing to bring in royalties of 7.5%, and that we raise the tax take to 48%. Okay, so that's what we're proposing. Now, if we had, in Ireland, when we look at the country, it's going down the tubes. We're in recession. Our health, our education is decimated. It's been decimated. There's cuts across the board, in particular, being aimed at the most vulnerable and at the lower paid and low income, and people on social welfare, and people are really struggling and really suffering. And here we have a resource that should be used for the benefit of Irish people. It should be used for the common good, and it's not. And there's serious questions to be asked about those deals that were negotiated, that, as I said, in 1987 by Ray Burke and by Bertie Ahern, which saw the Irish people gain nothing from this resource. Now, when you look at what has happened in other countries, when you look at Norway, for example, they have a state company, Statoil, that they set up to manage their oil and gas reserves. They now have a pension reserve fund of 350 billion and growing by the day. That's what they have. Why? Because they manage their resources in a prudent manner. They have written into their constitution that their natural resources should be used for the benefit of the common good. That's what they care. When you look at what has happened to Iceland in the last couple of years, and I have an interesting article here that I found on the internet, I have it here with me. They're trying to buy back, they're trying to pull back and take control of their natural resources. We're talking about the last year. And they're writing it into their equivalent of their constitution that any of their natural resources be used for the common good. And that's what needs to happen in this country. It's an absolute disgrace that we have given, as they call it, the great gas giveaway of the century. We've given it away for nothing. And, it just beggars belief, to be honest with you. Now, we in Sinn Féin, for example, we have been advocating for so long that this can be changed. There's no legal or constitutional impediment stopping the reclaiming of our oil and gas resources. It's the stroke of a minister's pen. All that's needed is political will and pressure to be put, sorry about this mic, but it's kind of whatever, pressure to be put on the incoming government to demand that these resources are reclaimed in the interest of the Irish people. Now, Leo Varadkar still is probably, for a few days anyway, he is the spokesperson on energy. And he claimed 3 months ago, he spoke at a dinner, a Dublin Chamber Trades dinner in Dublin, and he said categorically at that he will not renegotiate the terms and conditions. That he will not. So, that's what we're facing. And we need to put pressure, and we need to insist that these are being negotiated. Look at with the Carib gas, for example, but there's other gas reserves out there. There's a minimum of 500. They say there's a minimum of over 500 billion out there, but it could be trillions. We don't know. If you look at the landmass, it would be very interesting to have a slide. If you look at you look at a map of Ireland, and what you see is the landmass that's above the water. But right out to the west coast, 9/10, 1/10 can be seen above the water. 9/10 stretches out into the Atlantic Ocean. And who knows what's out there? Who knows what's out there? But we do know, for example, that we have the Dunquin, we've the Duishka, we've so many other that are being in the process, that other exploration licenses have been given out. In the month before Conor Lenihan, in the month before the government folded, he signed off on 2 new contracts under the same terms and conditions. So it's not just, we're consistently giving it out under the same terms and conditions. The only difference between new licences and that of the Carib gas is that the tax is at 40%. But as I said, tax can be written off. Any exploration or development expenses can be written off against tax before any penny is paid. So, as I said, I think I don't know if we'll ever see the benefit of that in this country. The Carib gas stands as it is at 25%. So, I don't know what else you want me to say here, Steve, but...
Well, if you want, if anyone has any questions, maybe I'll start.
Okay.
Why do you reckon everyone in the country, all the people, I know there's a good crowd here, but why does more people not know about this, and why are people getting angry about it?
Well, then there's probably other people that can speak here as well, but I think first of all what's happened is, the community who stood up for their rights down in Pullatomus and in Rossport and Belnaboy, I think they have been demonised, and they have been victimised and demonised. And I remember when the Rossport Five, for example, were in jail, I remember actually in this hall we held an event and we raised over €5,000. And it was more a mainstream issue then. But I think that since then, I think Shell and multinationals have been very successful in a PR campaign, and they've had in taking it out of the mainstream. And I think there's a lot of fear. I think people do have a lot of fear around it. Now, as regards the economic aspect, I think people are beginning to wake up. This is the first, in this election campaign that I've just been involved in, people are asking questions, and that's the first time they're asking, why? Why are we giving it away for free? And can it be negotiated? And why are some people saying it can be? And if it can be, why aren't we renegotiating it? And I think since the recession has come about, people are asking more and more questions because there's such a need. The other thing that has brought it up as well, I think, is the fact that there's a big debate around the economy. People are becoming more informed about economic issues. People are becoming more informed as well about the whole IMF deal, the bank bailout, the sell-off, basically, and demanding that be renegotiated. And if that can be renegotiated, But why can't this contract, that we've sold away our oil and gas, be renegotiated? So I think people are becoming more and more informed. But I suppose it's up to us and everyone else to get out there and try to rally people and to insist and demand from the incoming government, because now is an opportunity, that we renegotiate the terms and conditions.
Why, in your opinion, would Mayo laboratory say a statement of say directly no to his life? What's your opinion? Why did he give that?
Yeah, well, maybe somebody else wants to answer that as well, but I think, in my opinion, I think there is well, I don't want to be political here, but I think Fine Gael has a policy of privatisation. I don't, and we have, I think it's part of the political, that protecting multinationals and priority of multinationals over ordinary people and ordinary citizens. And, why aren't they renegotiating the IMFD? It's about priorities, isn't it? But maybe somebody else wants to answer that in a